The tassels hadn't even stopped swaying on our son's cap before her clutch hit the pavement. Lipstick rolled under the bleachers. She didn't move to pick it up, just stared. She wasn't supposed to see me. Not yet. From where I stood, 3 rows back, behind a balloon arch and a crying grandma in a leopard print shawl, I saw her shoulders stiffen. Her fingers curled around the folding chair like she expected the ground to shift. And maybe it did, because for the first time in 4 years, Lisa remembered I existed. She hadn't changed much. Same posture, same polished silence, same ability to ignore consequences like they were background noise. But when her eyes finally met mine, something flickered. Not guilt, not shame, fear. Beside her sat the same man she used to swear was just a client. Tall, clean-shaven. His hand was resting on the back of her seat until she shoved it off like it burned. She turned to say something to him. He didn't nod. He didn't even blink. He stood up and walked straight out of the stadium. And that's when I knew. They both thought I was dead. I didn't plan to follow him. My instinct was to disappear again, the way I had 4 years ago, quietly, without ceremony. But the way he walked off, calm and confident, like my reappearance was a confirmed threat rather than a surprise, made something twist inside me. It wasn't confusion. It was confirmation. Confirmation that they were hiding something, and my mere presence had detonated it. He wasn't walking fast. He didn't need to. He wasn't running from me. He was heading towards something. Or someone. I kept my distance, slipping past a line of parked cars and vendors selling overpriced hot dogs. I almost turned around when he entered a silver Lincoln parked near the back fence of the school lot. But the trunk didn't close all the way. And from where I stood, just past the shrub line, I saw what was inside. A second suit. Another pair of shoes. 2 phones. 2. I stepped closer, and that's when I noticed something taped under the lid of the trunk. A printed itinerary. But not for this town, for Phoenix. Departure, that evening. One way. I took a photo with my phone, then ducked out of sight as he turned back. He didn't notice me. He just popped the glove box open, pulled out a flash drive, and shoved it in his blazer pocket before lighting a cigarette and driving off. I didn't return to the graduation. I didn't speak to my son. Not yet. Instead, I sat in my rental car, staring at the photo of the flight info. The flash drive burned into my mind. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just about an affair. This wasn't about me showing up and rattling their happy little fantasy. This was bigger, coordinated, timed, like my presence had interrupted a plan in motion. And then, hours later, just before midnight, I got a message. No contact name. Just a number I didn't recognize. You weren't supposed to be there. What do you want? I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen until my fingers went cold. And then it hit me. Whoever sent that message wasn't asking. They were warning. That's when I knew. This wasn't going to be a story about closure. This was going to be a story about exposure. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, the kind where the mattress creaks like it's haunted, rereading that message over and over. You weren't supposed to be there. What do you want? It wasn't just threatening, it was entitled. Like someone who thought they owned the ending to my story. By morning, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, not really. From clarity. For 4 years, I had been buried alive under silence, half-truths, and that smug grin she wore when I walked out with a single suitcase. But seeing her yesterday, seeing that fear, that crack in her porcelain control, it lit something in me I didn't know was still burning. I drove to the old house. It was still hers. Lisa had kept it after the divorce, though the outside was different now. New siding, a manicured lawn, a security camera pointing toward the porch that I disabled with a strip of duct tape and a mirror I had in the glove box. Old construction tricks die hard. The side garage door was still broken. I'd always meant to fix it. I slipped in, heart pounding like a drumline. It smelled like oil, paint thinner, and peppermint, the same air freshener she used to stash in her car when she was sneaking off. For a moment, I stood in the dark, listening. No footsteps, no voices. Nothing but the low tick of the water heater and my own breathing. I remembered something Carter once told me years ago, when he was 10. He said Mom had a secret box she kept in the top cabinet of the garage, behind the old tax files and Easter decorations. Back then, I assumed it was just where she hid presents or cash. I never checked. I should have checked. The box was still there, blue plastic, duct taped shut twice over. I pulled it down carefully. No lock. Just stubborn adhesive and a lifetime of tension holding it closed. Inside were three things: a second passport, a burner phone, and a stack of printed photos, not of her and the man I saw at graduation, but of her and two other men I'd never seen before. Different cities, different outfits. One of them looked like it was taken overseas, a hotel balcony in Lisbon, if the towel embroidery was correct. But that's not what made me sit down on the cold concrete floor. It was the final photo in the stack, a candid shot of Carter, my son, my boy, sitting at a restaurant table, alone, taken from behind a window, like someone was watching him, stalking him. I didn't know what this was yet, a setup, an escape plan, a blackmail scheme, but I knew one thing for certain. Lisa wasn't scared of me because I showed up. She was scared because she knew I was about to keep going, and she had run out of time to bury what she'd done. I drove back to the motel in a fog. The box sat on the passenger seat like it had weight beyond its contents, as if the truth inside it was heavier than concrete. My knuckles were white on the wheel, and every sound outside the car felt louder than it should have. By the time I parked in front of room 112, my nerves were frayed thin. I didn't bring the box inside. I left it in the car under a blanket. Something told me I wasn't done with it yet, and I didn't want it anywhere near me when I closed my eyes, if I even could. I hadn't been back in the room for more than 10 minutes when the knock came. 3 slow, deliberate raps on the door. Then silence. I didn't move. It came again, this time softer, less demanding, more careful. I stepped toward the peephole and froze. Lisa. She was alone, wearing a black coat, collar turned up, hair pulled tight like she hadn't slept either. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even angry. She looked like she was preparing to lie. I didn't open the door right away. I let her wait. I wanted to see how long she could stand there, pretending she had any right to face me again. But then she did something that stopped me cold. She pulled out a phone, not the same one I saw her using at graduation. This one was old, cracked, wrapped in a rubber band, and she slipped it into the mail slot at the bottom of the door. Then she whispered through the gap, "Don't trust him. He's not who you think. And neither is Carter." I flung the door open, but she was already halfway across the lot, slipping into a silver SUV I didn't recognize. The engine roared before I could shout a word, and she peeled out like she'd just dropped off a bomb. I stood there for several minutes, staring at the phone in my hand, my heart pounding in places it hadn't in years. Then it rang. Unknown number. I answered. A voice I didn't recognize, male, deep, calm, said one thing. "Put the box back, Elwood, or we'll start with your son." He hung up. I stood there frozen, phone in one hand, the motel doors swinging open behind me in the breeze. It took me another second to realize I wasn't alone. There was someone else in the room now, sitting on the edge of my bed. Thad, my son. He looked older than I remembered, broader, less sure of himself. His eyes were wet, and his first words didn't make any sense until later. I didn't know who else to call. "I think Mom's being followed." I didn't answer right away, because for the first time in years, I wasn't sure who in that family I could still believe, including the boy I once raised. He sat there like he'd been waiting all day for someone to believe him, but couldn't find the right words to start. I hadn't seen Thad in years, and now he was slouched on my motel bed, hands fidgeting with a hotel pin like it might snap in half. He kept glancing at the door like someone might burst through it at any second. "Dad," he said softly, like the word itself was a question he wasn't sure he had permission to ask. "You shouldn't have come, but I'm glad you did." I didn't know what to say. I hadn't heard his voice in 4 birthdays, 2 Thanksgivings, or 100 imagined conversations I'd had with myself when the house was too quiet. I wanted to ask a million things. I wanted to hold him. I wanted to scream. But instead, I sat down across from him and said, "Why did you come here alone?" Thad looked up, finally, and something behind his eyes cracked open. "Because Mom's not who she says she is," he said. "And I think she's scared for the wrong reasons." He told me things I never imagined. That she'd moved 3 times in 4 years, changed her number twice, and told her friends she was getting anonymous threats online, always from some man she couldn't identify. That she didn't use social media anymore, but every few weeks she'd disappear for a day or 2 with no explanation. That she kept a burner phone taped to the back of the washing machine, wrapped in a Ziploc bag, with a single contact listed as E. That she told Thad never to answer it if it rang. "She thinks she can outrun something," he said. "But it's not working. The last 6 months, I've caught her crying in the car. Not because she misses you, not because of guilt. It's something else. She's terrified." "And what about you?" I asked. Are you scared? Thad hesitated, then said, yeah, but not of what she thinks I'm scared of. He reached into his backpack and pulled out something wrapped in an old sweatshirt. A memory card. He said he'd found it by accident 2 months ago while fixing the leaky sink in the upstairs bathroom. It was duct taped to the inside of the drawer. She didn't know I found it. I thought it was just old family videos, but it's not. It's something else. Something encrypted. He handed it to me like it was radioactive. I don't know what's on it, he said, but I know she didn't want anyone finding it. And the weirdest part? A few days after I found it, I started noticing a black car parked across the street at night. Every couple of days. Same car. Tinted windows. No plates. That pit in my stomach, the one that had started when I found the photos, now turned to stone. I think, he said, almost in a whisper, she's running from something that happened way before the divorce. Something she thought she got away with. And then he looked up at me and added, and I don't think you were the only one she disappeared. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Because if what he was saying was true, if Lisa had buried more than just a marriage, then this wasn't just about betrayal or secrets anymore. This was about survival. And if someone had been watching her all this time, there was a good chance they were watching us now. We left the motel before sunrise. Neither of us said much. Thad sat beside me in the passenger seat, arms folded, eyes scanning every rear-view angle like he was expecting something to lunge out of the dark. The memory card sat between us and the console, still unread, still heavy with whatever truth Lisa had hidden so desperately. I had one destination in mind, the only person I knew who could decrypt what was on it without leaving a trace. Her name was Nola. She worked in a strip mall repair shop and owed me a favor from way back when I helped her avoid a lawsuit over a failed renovation. She was smart, fast, and quiet, and didn't ask questions she didn't want answers to. It was still early when we pulled into her lot, but she was already there, unlocking the front grate, a cigarette hanging from her lips. When she saw me, she raised an eyebrow but didn't smile. Didn't expect you to still be breathing, she muttered, let alone dragging a kid through a storm. I didn't explain. I just handed her the card. Off the grid, I said. No backups. No cloud. If it looks like anything illegal, I don't want to hear it. Just pull whatever's there and let me see it first. She nodded and led us inside through the back door. While she set up, I paced the room. Thad stayed close, keeping one hand on his phone and the other on the pocket knife I hadn't even noticed him carrying until now. 20 minutes passed. Then Nola's voice cut through the static. You're going to want to sit down. On her screen were folders. Dozens. All dated. All labeled with initials and coded strings. She opened one. Inside were screenshots, videos, surveillance logs, phone transcripts, names, some familiar, some foreign, but one stuck out immediately. Lisa M. Chambers, my ex-wife, followed by the tag, asset status, compromised. Thad leaned over my shoulder. What does that mean? Before I could answer, the building shook. The entire front window shattered inward like it had been punched by a wave of sound. We hit the floor instinctively. Glass sprayed across the carpet. A black SUV screeched outside. Tires screaming. Doors opening. They found us, I said. Move. We ran out the side, through the service alley. Nola stayed behind, yelling she'd wiped the system. I didn't look back. I didn't even have time to make sure she was lying or telling the truth. As we hit the back lot, Thad pointed. Same black car. Tinted windows. No plates. This time, they didn't drive away. One man stepped out. Tall. Dressed like he belonged to a country club, but with the posture of someone who'd snapped bones before breakfast. He didn't pull a weapon. He didn't say a word. He just raised a phone and took a picture of us. Flash. Click. Pocket. Then he nodded. Not at us, but at someone inside the SUV, and got back in. The car drove off calmly, like it wasn't part of an ambush that nearly blew out a city block. I stood there, adrenaline flooding my system, lungs heaving. Thad finally spoke, voice shaking. What the hell is happening? And I answered honestly. I don't know. But your mother's been lying about everything. And whatever this is. I looked down at the phone in my pocket, the one she'd slid under my motel door, and pulled up the last message received. It wasn't a warning. It was a name. Theodore Calhoun. Thad read it out loud. Who's that? And I whispered the answer I hadn't thought of in years. My brother. I hadn't said his name out loud in over a decade. Theodore Calhoun. My older brother. Gone since 2011. A ghost buried under guilt, silence, and a single shallow headstone in a town too ashamed to ask questions. Thad looked at me like I just said I had another family. You told me he died, he said, voice cracking. I nodded, because I believed he did. We drove in silence for a long time after that. I didn't know where we were going. I just needed the car to move. Needed air to fill the space between what I thought was true and what I now couldn't avoid. Everything was spinning. The surveillance. The message. Lisa's voice whispering through the motel door, "Don't trust him." It had always haunted me, the way Theo disappeared. Officially, it was an overdose. I was the one who found him, collapsed behind his trailer in the woods outside Quincy, needle still in his arm, wallet missing. The coroner signed it off in 2 days. Open and shut. No autopsy. No investigation. Just the assumption of a screw-up brother finally slipping through the cracks. But something had never added up. He was clean. 6 months sober. He'd just gotten a new job, lined up housing, and had even sent me a voice memo excited about Carter's upcoming birthday. Uncle Theo's got big plans, he'd said. Then, gone. Lisa never liked him. Said he was dangerous, that he had too many shadows. I used to think she was just being overprotective. Now I wondered if she'd known something I didn't. So I told Thad everything. About how Theo once worked for a consulting firm no one could find an address for. About how he flew overseas frequently but claimed it was boring compliance stuff. About the day he came to me in 2010 and said, "If anything happens to me, don't ask questions. Just keep Carter safe." At the time, I thought it was paranoia. Another addict spiraling. Now, I wasn't so sure. I pulled the car over outside a rural diner off Route 59. We needed food, but more than that, I needed to think. I needed a moment where nothing exploded, no glass shattered, and no black SUVs followed us. Inside, Thad ordered pancakes and barely touched them. I nursed a black coffee until it went cold. Then his phone buzzed. Blocked number. No message. Just a voicemail. He played it on speaker. A woman's voice, distorted, urgent, speaking fast and low. "They're watching both of you now. Theodore is alive, but he's not the same man. He made choices you weren't supposed to know about. Your mother tried to keep you away for a reason. Go back to where it started. The greenhouse. The attic. Before they wipe it." Thad stared at the phone. "I thought that place burned down," he said. "Didn't Mom say the greenhouse was destroyed years ago?" "No," I said quietly. "She said we couldn't go back. She never said it was gone." The greenhouse was a family cabin on the edge of a dying lake. It had no plumbing, barely any electricity, and walls covered in old maps and unmarked keys. My grandfather's legacy. Theo used to disappear there for weeks when he needed to clear things up. I hadn't been since Carter was 7. We got back in the car. Halfway through the drive, Thad asked the question I was trying to avoid. "Dad, what if Mom wasn't cheating? What if she was trying to protect us? What if leaving you was part of keeping us apart from something worse?" I didn't answer, because deep down, I'd started wondering the same. And that terrified me more than anything else so far. We reached the greenhouse just after midnight. It looked the same as it had when I was a kid, even after all these years. Still hidden behind the overgrown trees, still cloaked in moss and silence. Still green, though the paint had peeled so much it looked like it had been crying for years. The front door was unlocked. That alone set off alarm bells. But Thad stepped in before I could stop him. I followed, flashlight beam slicing through the dust like a knife through fog. The furniture was still there. Old, creaky, forgotten. But something had changed. The attic door was open. Wide. We climbed the ladder slowly. Upstairs, the attic wasn't empty. A man stood with his back to us, hunched over a table filled with maps, photos, and small surveillance monitors still powered by a humming generator in the corner. He turned. I nearly dropped the flashlight. It was him. Theo. Older. Leaner. More scarred inside and out. But it was him. And when he saw me, his eyes didn't fill with shock or joy. They filled with apology. "I didn't die," he said. "I disappeared. Because I had to. I didn't speak. I couldn't." Thad looked between us, confused, caught between generations of silence and secrets. Theo gestured toward the monitors. "Footage of our motel. The diner. Lisa's house. I've been watching you," he said. "Not to hurt you. To protect you." And then he told us the truth. Years ago, Theo had uncovered a network operating behind one of the consulting firms he worked for, a quiet, well-dressed group laundering money and blackmailing mid-level government officials. He tried to report it, but the people involved were everywhere. He became a target. Lisa found out by accident when she discovered one of his burner phones during a visit. And from that moment, she was in it, too. They threatened her. Not with death. With exposure. With taking Carter. With ruining everything. So she did the only thing she could, Theo said. She pushed you away. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice shaking. Because if you knew, he said, they'd come after you too. And they nearly did. Then he turned to Thad. Your mom's not perfect. But she saved your life, kid. She gave up everything to keep you in the dark, even if it broke her. We stood there for a long time, the three of us, surrounded by dust and history and broken choices. By dawn, Theo gave us everything. The flash drives, the passwords, the identities of those still involved. Said he'd be vanishing again, but this time, on his terms. And that we were finally free. Back home, we didn't tell Lisa we knew. Not right away. But a week later, Thad and I showed up on her porch. She opened the door, eyes red, lips trembling. She didn't say anything. She just fell into my arms like a person exhaling for the first time in years. I thought I ruined everything, she whispered. No, I said. You saved it. That night, we sat around the kitchen table, the three of us, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we were just a family again. Not perfect, not fixed, but finally safe.